beautiful downtown Millheim, in the smack dab center of the Keystone State, this is Lou Bryson with Seen Through a Glass, the podcast that's mostly about food and drink in central Pennsylvania. Welcome to episode 82, The Port of Hollidaysburg. I gave you a short episode last time and no interview. Well, this time I've got a longer episode, and I interviewed an old friend I hadn't seen in years, Matt Krueger, the owner, brewer, and dishwasher at Sugar Run Brewery in Duncansville. I also have a first for the podcast. What I'm drinking today will be the premiere review for a new whiskey from a small but nationally known brand. They don't even know what I'm going to say yet. You want to stick around for that. A special shout out to listener Dan Gilbert. You, in particular, will want to stick around for that. But let's back up a bit. Why is this episode titled The Port of Hollidaysburg? If you know Hollidaysburg at all, you know that it's landlocked in the middle of the state, just south of Altoona. How is that a port? Well, Hollidaysburg is a town that grew from a surprising bit of transportation history. Well, two towns, actually, because we're going to talk a little about next-door Duncansville, too. Starting in 1834, Hollidaysburg was, for a brief amount of time, an important port city on the Pennsylvania Canal system, what they called the main line of public works. This was when canals were webbing the East Coast, moving goods faster than they'd ever moved before in this country, sowing the seeds of an industrial boom. Pennsylvania had a major manufacturing center in Philadelphia and the Pennsylvania Dutch country of Lancaster, Reading, and the Lehigh Valley. Pittsburgh and Johnstown were booming iron production centers by 1820. The main line of public works looked to connect these industries, feed them, grow them, and get them to market. It was an enormous state works project, and the bizarre and unique linchpin that held it together started here in Hollidaysburg. Goods came by railroad from Philly to Columbia, Pennsylvania, on the east bank of the Susquehanna in Lancaster County. They were taken off the rail cars and loaded onto canal boats. The boats went up the river in a canal built on the east bank and then crossed the Susquehanna just upstream of Duncannon to a canal built alongside the Juniata River. Now that provided navigation the whole way up to Hollidaysburg, where a 2-mile-long canal basin sorted them out. In the town's heyday as a port city, another boat entered the basin every 20 minutes. Boomtown. But that's where they hit a snag, because the Allegheny Mountains west of town had no river through them for easy canal construction and no real path for a railroad either. Well, not a conventional railroad. What the Pennsylvania engineers came up with was the Allegheny Portage Railroad. The actual canal boats, still loaded with cargo and passengers, more about that in a bit, were built so they could be broken apart in sections, winched up onto short flatbed rail cars, and towed, first by horses, soon by locomotives, to where they started the climb up the mountain. And that's why I'm pronouncing it as portage and not portage, because it's exactly like when you have to take a canoe out of the water to carry it overland to the next body of water, a process that canoeists call a portage. There the rail cars would be attached to endless loops of cable, massive twists of hemp at first, replaced in the 1840s by John Roebling's woven wire ropes, like he would later use on the Brooklyn Bridge, and an enormous steam-powered winch would haul them up the first inclined plane. There were 4 more of those going up, and 5 more on the western side of the mountain going down, with graded lines in between where the cars either ran free with gravity or were pulled by regular locomotives. The western side included a viaduct over the Little Conemaugh River and the 900-foot-long Staple Bend Tunnel, the first railroad tunnel built in the United States. Cars would run down into Johnstown and then float down the Western Division Canal to Pittsburgh. The entire Allegheny Portage Railroad was only 36 miles long, and the sections of a canal boat could traverse it in 6 hours, assuming nothing went wrong. The disassembly and reassembly of the boats took more time, but it was still much faster than the old horse and wagon route. Amazingly, building all of this, including the tunnel and the viaduct, was completed in under 3 years. There's a very well-written record of what riding the Portage Railroad was like. I say very well written without fear of contradiction because it was written by Charles Dickens as part of his 1842 travelogue, American notes for general circulation. It sounds like a great trip. Occasionally, Dickens writes, the rails were laid upon the extreme verge of a giddy precipice, and looking down from the carriage window, the traveler gazes sheer down, without a stone or scrap of fence between, into the mountain depths below. It was amusing, too, when we had dined, and rattled down a steep pass, having no other moving power than the weight of the carriages themselves. This crazy combination of railroads, canals, and canal boats on railroads wasn't smooth, but it cut the transit time from Philly to Pittsburgh from 23 days by horse-drawn coach to about 4 days, a huge savings. The Allegheny Portage Railroad would only be in operation for about 20 years, and it lost money every year. It was sold to the Pennsylvania Railroad in 1857, which used the right-of-ways they could and just left the rest of it lapse. The PRR had opened the much shorter all-rail route through the Horseshoe Curve and the Twin Tunnels in Gallitzin in 1854-55, which shortened the transit time from Philly to Pittsburgh to a mere 15 hours. And Hollidaysburg, once a burgeoning port city and the natural choice as county seat of Blair County, was bypassed. It would be the new town of Altoona's time to shine. Hey, there's more to come. How Hollidaysburg survived, how Duncansville got its name. It was settled with a coin toss, a visit to one of the dockside taverns from those crazy days, and Hollidaysburg's underground dive bar, the Pipe Room. We've got a lot to do, and we've barely begun. Let's start with that brand new whiskey, because here's what I'm drinking today. What I'm drinking today is Batch 12 of Found North Whiskey. I met Nick Taylor on August 27th, 2015 at the Dad's Hat Distillery. He was working at Gordon's Wine in Waltham, Mass. At the time, and had come down with his boss to pick out a single barrel of Dad's Hat for the store. Herman Mihalich, you met Herman back in episode 72, invited me to come over and hang out. Nick impressed me with his palate and his passion. He very much wanted to pick a barrel that was not just excellent, but a barrel that was inspiring. So much so, he eventually talked his boss into picking 2 barrels, assuring him that he could sell it all. We'd enjoyed each other's company, so we exchanged cards to stay in touch. I was still surprised when I heard from him 5 years later. He was starting up Found North with his brother Zach, dedicated to the proposition of finding small caches of superb Canadian whiskey and blending them to create unique whiskeys. And they have. Nick sent me samples of the early batches, and I remember Batch 2 fondly, a blend of 20-year-old corn whiskey and 2 rye whiskeys aged 16 and 17 years. There were only 1,302 bottles, and the sample I got just knocked me out. Rich, complex, a new idea. Honestly, everything I've ever had from Found North has been fantastic, and if you're lucky, you've had some too. And yes, these have been free samples, and the one today is, I hope you know that I would tell you truthfully if I didn't care for them. Because I will. So let's try this Found North Batch 12. This is a blend of 16, 20, and 22-year-old corn whiskeys, with 20 and 22-year-old rye whiskeys coming in at a calculated overall mash bill of 86% corn, 13% rye, and 1% malt. It is bottled at 128.2 proof. Enough talking. Let's have a taste of this stuff. I'm going to open the bottle right now for the first pour. Give me a minute. Well, I'll tell you one thing. First good impression, it's a wax top, which I normally don't like, and it came right off. No problems. Thank you. Second good point, synth cork. I'm sorry, you don't need real cork for whiskey. It's not like wine. It's a synth cork. It worked well. I'm happy. Now, let's get to the whiskey. For being mostly used barrel age, even at this age, this is a fairly dark whiskey, nice orangish amber. Legs are, oh, wow, slow to form, but nice. All right, let's get a whiff. Wow, you definitely get hit by that proof. Oh, but wow. So grain, but also, oh man, fruit. There's like fresh pineapple there. Bit of cedar. Oh man, that fresh pineapple is killing me. It's great. Yeah. Warm cereal. More of those like pencil shavings and a little bit of toast. Some just like general wood shop aromas. All right, let's try this. Well, the heat is definitely there. Oh, wow. Sorry, the initial hit on the palate is good, but this finish is phenomenal. Really just spreads open through the throat like a sunset. Okay. Try to slow down and get more of the palate experience. Essentially, everything repeats on the palate. The pineapple is subdued, but still there. Some more of that cereal and it becomes clearer. Not so much corn as the rye, but I'm also getting the wood stuff. Again, there's that kind of cedary note. The proof is there as warmth, but not burning. And again, I gotta tell you, this finish is just forever. Sorry, I'm really savoring this more than usual. All right, I want to try this with just a dab of water. They have elaborate instructions for how to hit their manager's proof. This is barrel proof, but they give you their opinions of what the best proofing is, which I greatly appreciate. Oh boy. Now I'm getting some vaguely herbal notes. There's some vanilla coming through now. Wow, and the finish is tamed a bit in that it is not as hot, but it's still glowing right across the back of my mouth. Well, this is another Found North whiskey that does not disappoint. This is a great concept. These are essentially pilot batches of Canadian whiskey that maybe they went in a different direction or they still had some left of the pilot batch, and Nick and Zach go up there and find them. And of course, now they've established connections up there, so they're getting more of it. It's an interesting pipeline that they have. Find it. Find Found North. They're really good whiskeys. They're not cheap, I'll warn you, but nothing good is. Now, before we get going, here's your smack dab in the center, sponsored by the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau. Hey, is it warm enough yet to go out for ice cream? People in Happy Valley know that if Wasson Farm Market is selling ice cream, the season is on. The Wassons are out toward the Pine Grove Mill end of Route 45, and their farm market has a lot of good stuff, including the occasional classic chicken barbecue, but you're really going for their great ice cream. Did you know, though, when you're at Wasson's, you're only 2.5 miles, pretty much a straight shot up Branch Road to Meyer's Dairy Store? Delicious fresh dipped cones are the hot ticket, but don't overlook their renowned chocolate milk. Meyer's is the locals' favorite, but the truly famous ice cream spot in Center County is, of course, Berkey Creamery on the Penn State campus. Get the full scoop on that in episode 20. Penn State alums return to Berkey Creamery like swallows to Capistrano, but the lure of the ice cream cannot be denied. If you'd prefer something a bit more rural, head out to Howard to visit Nittany Valley Creamery, an Amish-owned dairy store with farm-fresh ice cream. And since it's Amish, yes, inevitably, they have delicious baked goods, too. Your diet's been warned. Once again, check before you go at the happyvalley.com website. Click on the Eat and Sip button to find these places and more. Now, I can't resist history. So let's back up just a bit further and see where these towns actually began. Hollidaysburg is one of the oldest communities in Blair County, founded by brothers Adam and William Holliday in 1768. Adam settled on one side of the Juniata River, and William occupied land on the other. The settlement remained tiny until the opening of the Huntingdon, Cambria, and Indiana Turnpike, a narrow road for wagon travel. By 1830, Hollidaysburg had grown to a hamlet of 72 people. So big! Then the Juniata division of the Pennsylvania Canal opened to Hollidaysburg in November of 1832, and the town ballooned to over 3,000 people. In 1834, the Portage Railroad opened, completing the link to Johnstown and Pittsburgh, and of course, therefore, to Louisville, Cairo, and eventually on down the Mississippi. New communities bloomed. For instance, The village, located at the base of the easternmost inclined plane, which were numbered west to east, was fittingly named Foot of 10. It still goes by that name. In fact, quick aside here, I collect odd Pennsylvania town names, and there is a bumper crop around Hollidaysburg. Not just Foot of 10, there's also Puzzletown, Scalp, Blue Knob, Dumb Hundred, Jugtown, and Wapsanonoc, the last one commonly shortened to Wapsie. Gotta love it. Okay, back to the Hollidaysburg boom era. Hollidaysburg looked a lot like other canal towns from the day. Muddy streets, hotels, saloons, brothels, dry goods stores, and the inevitable grifters and drifters. The way the town was growing, it needed some direction, and so Hollidaysburg was incorporated as a borough on August 10th, 1836. Gaysport, on the other side of the Juniata, was also settled by William Holliday, but it was named for John Gay, one of the engineers who had planned the canal. It was incorporated in 1841, and then the towns eventually united as Hollidaysburg in 1924. Look, I'm sorry to bore you with this kind of stuff, but I really kind of find it fascinating. We walk around today thinking these towns were just founded and that was it, but it wasn't like that at all. Go back and give a listen to how Mifflinburg got started in episode 69. You can still see today exactly where the union of two competing towns happened. It happened again in Duncansville, which is directly west between Hollidaysburg and Foot of 10. It was named for Samuel Duncan, who bought land and laid out a town on the west bank of Blair Gap Run. And around the same time, Jacob Walters laid out a town on the east bank of that small creek and named it Walterstown. The two boroughs inevitably grew together, and the question of the name came up. Would it be Duncansville or Walterstown? And I love what they decided to do about that. They had a big town festival in 1831, and on the wooden bridge that connected the two towns, with Duncan and Walters themselves attending, they flipped a coin. Duncan called it, and Duncansville it was. They still celebrate the coin toss every year. The town also has a pawpaw festival in September, which this pawpaw lover would like to check out. But I think Duncansville's main claim to fame must be the Meadows Frozen Custard, which the Meadows family opened in 1950. You can, as I did in episode 20, still go to the original shop at the intersection of Plank Road and Municipal Drive, and you should. It's delicious. There are several franchises in Central PA, including a new one on the outskirts of Bellefonte. I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that Duncansville is a dry town. This relic of Prohibition is maybe more common than you think. There are about 675 dry towns, boroughs, and townships in Pennsylvania, though they are slowly, one by one, going wet. Towns have to vote themselves wet through a ballot referendum. By state law, it has to be by vote of the community. It cannot be simply decided by a town council. And that's why Sugar Run Brewery is just outside of the town limits of Duncansville. How's that for a segue? I stumbled across Sugar Run Brewery a couple years ago, and I was impressed with their Maibach and their food. It's a breezy place. We were there on a warm weekend, and the garage-type doors were open. People were hustling and happy. I was intrigued by the classic motorhome parked outside and the bird graphics all over the interior. Then I was surprised to learn that I knew the owner. I'd met Matt Krueger almost 20 years earlier at Victory Brewing when he was managing their Downingtown pub. Quirky guy, and we took an immediate liking to each other. I'd see him several times over the next few years. Then about 3 months ago, Matt reached out to me. Hey, he said, I like this podcast you're doing. If you ever want to get me and Sugar Run on there, give me a holler. I told him I might take him up on that because I did like the place, and I wanted to do something on Hollidaysburg, if only because of the U.S. Hotel. Then, as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, I found myself in a bit of a temporary bind on content, and I gave Matt a holler. We got this interview set up, and last week Dave Drees and I rolled down I-99 to get it done. We found that not only was the place as cool as we remembered it, but Matt had added a greenhouse annex, an L on one end that included a waterfall, plants, and comfy tables, with a goldfish pond at the entrance. Quite the oasis, and there was a similar addition on the back of the pub, a deck looking down a little slope to trees and a single par 2 disc golf hole. Matt took us on a short tour of the whole place, and then he and I sat down at the mics. Folks, here's Matt Krueger. Hey, I'm here with Matt Krueger at Sugar Run Brewing, and this is Duncansville, right? Yeah. How you doing? Matt is he's the owner and the head brewer, the executive chef, and what was the other office you mentioned?
It's the chief hydroceramic engineer, which is dishwasher.
Thank you. So, as they say in the business, full disclosure, we've known each other for years. Haven't seen each other for quite a while, but I am familiar with you.
Well, it's always nice to see a friendly, familiar face, and it's wonderful to have you here.
Yeah, it's very good to be here. This is not my first time here. I've been here at least twice before. I think it was twice, and I'm very happy that on the occasion before I had the Maibach, and I'm drinking it again now. So, that's nice. So I want to start with a quick resume. You're from Philly suburbs, near suburbs.
Yeah, so I was born in Upper Darby.
Okay.
And right outside of West Philadelphia. 69th Street Terminal was
Oh my God. Okay.
was a block away from where I went to high school.
Yeah.
And I was raised in a house with 6 siblings, so I'm one of 7 kids, and started in the hospitality space when I was 13 years old.
Wow.
I worked for this Irish pub in the Pilgrim Garden shopping center called Cavanaugh's, and I was a busboy there. And I remember walking about 1.5 miles home from Cavanaugh's at the end of my shift, and at 13 years old, I was very curious as to why the waitresses there, the old ladies who were waiting tables, were smoking these giant cigarettes, the Doral 100. And I remember stealing a couple Dorals and smoking them at 13 years old on the way home. So it was a little bit of early corruption, thanks to the hospitality space. But that was my first foray into hospitality, and then graduated from Upper Darby High School, and I went to Temple University, where I met my...
does.
Yep. And I met my wife there. We had a computer lab together when we met when we were sophomores. I fell in love. I'm not sure if she did or not, but we married in 1998, and we just celebrated 28 years together.
Wow.
And she's my partner in crime with this expedition.
Nice. That's what I wanted. And I mean, how did you wind up in Duncansville?
So she was from Hollidaysburg.
Okay.
And Hollidaysburg is the county seat of Blair County. Duncansville is the zip code, but we're actually in Allegheny Township. It's just Duncansville is where our post office is.
Okay.
And
Yeah, because Duncansville's dry, right?
it is dry.
What the?
But there's absolutely no zoning at all in Allegheny Township, which is handy. And I think that
Yeah.
there's some pressure to make Duncansville not dry anymore. It's sort of an archaic thing.
Yeah, it's a little outmoded.
Yeah, I think so too. But after we graduated from college, we both got jobs in sales. While I was going to school in Philadelphia, I got a job waiting tables at Dock Street at 18th and Cherry, 2 Logan Square. And I got a job there as a waiter, worked there for about 2 years. And one of
And
my...
just a little shout out, you told us who your mentor was.
Yeah, so the guy who trained me, my first trainer at Dock Street, was very serious about craft beer and became a very close friend of mine. Chris LaPierre, great guy who we lost a year ago.
Yeah.
But he was very serious about craft beer, and at the time I had no idea. The back of the menu at Dock Street had 70 different styles of beer listed, even though they may have only represented a dozen or so at any one time. And I thought that the whole team that was brewing there, Victor Novak and Eric Savage were the head brewers at the time. And Chris LaPierre was a bartender and a waiter. So he sort of trained me on the ins and outs of craft beer. But I was blown away that anybody could remember 70 different styles of beer that was made all over the world.
Yeah.
And, now sitting here today, some 20 plus years later, I'm making almost all those styles at any one time. But it was definitely a very culturally awakening that I had. I couldn't believe that there was so many different flavors, so many nuanced flavors of these old world style beers that I thought Dock Street did really well with.
Yes.
In particular, their Bohemian Pilsner, I thought was fantastic. They also released a pale ale, which, truth be told, that flavor profile of Dock Street's pale ale and their Bohemian Pilsner are sort of the backbones of how I modeled my Pilsner and my pale ale to this day. So I worked at Dock Street for a couple of years. Then I left to work in sales. That's what my degree was, in marketing. I hated sales. And I went back to Dock Street and I managed it as a restaurant manager, front of the house manager for a couple of years. Then I moved to Royersford and I got a job working at now Rock Bottom, was Brew Moon, which is a brew pub chain out of Massachusetts. And I worked there as a cellarman and a bartender. I did that for about a year and a half, 2 years. And then my wife Diane and I decided to move to State College, where we opened up a gourmet sandwich shop called Dee's Texas Hot Dog, modeled after the Altoona staple, the Texas hot dog.
Yeah.
Which is ironic. There's no Texas hot dogs in Texas.
Right.
But they're all over Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Even Royersford had a Texas hot dog
Did they
shop.
really?
Yeah.
How about that?
So we did that.
I think there's one left in Philadelphia.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So we moved to State College and we ran this fast casual gourmet sandwich shop for about 3 years.
Yeah, I'm really sorry I missed it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had our first child there, Harrison, who used to sit in the backpack of my wife Diane, who ran the register. So he was this toddler sitting in a baby seat on her back.
Right.
And I did all the cooking. She would send the orders down a wire. And
Really?
Yeah, it was really pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, we'd put a binder clip on the receipt paper and she would zip it down.
there.
And then I would read it and make the food. But we made a lot of Texas hot dogs. Mm-hmm. When Harrison, the child in the backpack, would start getting fussy, she would hand him an oatmeal cookie to quiet him down. And then he would get bored halfway eating the cookie and start combing her hair with it,
Oh my gosh.
which was quite a scene. But people were very endeared by the small family business that we had started,
Sure.
and we were very young. I was 25 at the time, she was 24, and when he was born, we were showered with, gifts for the new baby from our customers, and it was very nice to be welcomed on a very personal level. We realized that we didn't want to raise a family in State College, so we decided to move back to the Philadelphia market. And while I was in Royersford and through my experience at State College, I was drinking this brewery beer from Victory in Downingtown. I'd never heard of Downingtown before in my life. But I was really enamored with Victory's Golden Monkey. Mm-hmm. It was a style of beer that I'd never heard of before, a Belgian triple. I almost thought that it was maybe not right because it almost had a salt quality to it. And just to have that spice from banana and clove, the esters that you get from the Belgian yeast were so unusual to me that I didn't really understand it. It was really, really pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And it was also, I think, a 10.5 ABV.
Big
so,
beer.
It made me feel pretty good about myself at the same time. And I just fell in love with it. I wrote a letter to one of the owners of Victory, and I asked if I could sell beer in Philly because I was good at talking, I knew about craft beer, and I believed in their product. They didn't have a job opening for me at the time, but I guess a year later or so, I was contacted by them. They were looking for a qualified general manager to run their brew pub. And I jumped at the opportunity. I wound up getting the job, and
Which is where I met you.
which is where we met.
Yeah.
And I was there from 2003 until 2016. So during almost a decade and a half,
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to really be immersed in what it is to appreciate fantastic German beers. The one owner, Ron, I think may still be considered one of the preeminent authority on European hops. I remember he did a lecture at the Craft Brewers Conference on German hops. Did this one program called Terroir de Tettnang.
I remember him talking about the differences in hop from one farm to another.
And not only one farm to another, but the same farm harvesting the same hop days apart from each other.
Wow.
Like one hop crop was harvested, during a rainstorm. One was harvested when it was extremely dry, and how all these subtle nuances came to be. And we had 4 different Tettnang single hopped beers on at one time, and we had a special flight board made up for it where you'd sample 4 Tet hopped pilsners and be able to say, wow, there's really a difference. This one has a little bit of a cantaloupe flavor to it. This one I get lime. This one I get black pepper. And just really a tremendous way to appreciate the same recipe.
Well, I remember the time they split the pale ale recipe and did half of it with the ESB yeast and half of it with the American pale yeast. And the difference was night and day.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
That was a great
Actually,
tool.
I haven't thought about that in a long, long time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Do I see wheels spinning?
yeah, well, I
Maybe.
mean, I do like ESBs and American Pale Ales. There's no doubt about that. I think that my time at Victory was very well spent, and I made a lot of connections and friendships. Even to this day, their director of brewing operations towards the end of my tenure was a gentleman by the name of Adam Bartles. And Adam, I believe now, is the chief operating officer for the Denali Brewing Company in Talkeetna, Alaska.
Yeah.
Just a great guy, great friendships like that. And we did so much. We had such a blast. Just, multiple events, multiple expansions. I did a beer dinner with Michael Jackson.
Nice.
I did another collaborative beer dinner with Garrett Oliver from the Brooklyn Brewing Company. I even have Michael Jackson's signed copy of the New World Guide to Beer, where he wrote on the cover page and the inside something like "delicious meal."
Nice.
It was very cool.
Yeah.
And I think there was a 2008 when we did that. But he's not with us anymore. But I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from everybody that I've come in contact with to get me to where I am today, and I'm still certainly learning.
So how did we get here?
So after I left Victory in 2016, I bounced around, did a couple different odd jobs, had to deal with COVID, but I worked for a gentleman who bought the old historic Eagle Tavern, and I wound up putting a one-barrel brewery in the basement, and I made a couple mistakes, but at the end, I was making some pretty decent beer.
And you hadn't brewed before.
I did some home brewing,
Okay.
but I'd spent a lot of time being mentored by Ron and all the other brewers at Victory.
Arguably some of the best in the business.
I would agree with that. And, very curious by nature, I would ask questions to demystify the process. I also gave hundreds of tours of Victory's facility, and if I ever had someone in the industry ask me questions about, the centrifuge or, dropping yeast or what diatomaceous earth is, and if I didn't know that, I wanted to make sure that I knew it for the next time.
For the next one, yeah.
So over the years, I, from a very practical standpoint, I learned as much as I could about how beer was made. So when it came to the application of it, it wasn't like I was new to the word, sparging or Vorteloff or what krausening is or any of those terms. And I was really excited to actually make beer. And when I did it at the Eagle Tavern, but I was really happy to make beer there. And I kind of wanted just to break out and do this for myself instead of somebody else. I think you get to a certain point in your life where your tolerance for having debates with your boss about doing the right thing starts to get a little tired.
You want to be the boss.
Yeah, and so if you're the boss, you're not having debates with anybody to do what you think is the right thing. Even if you have the debate and wind up doing the right thing, sort of the exercise of going through all that just got a little long in the tooth.
Yeah.
We were in a position where it's either sort of now or never, and we decided that we wanted to open up our own brew pub. And we tried to do that in the Chester County market for years. A bunch of different factors sort of got in the way, disputes with the landlord, COVID happening. We had got a location on the East Branch of the Brandywine River that was subsequently flooded by Hurricane Irene in 2021. So for about two solid, almost 3 years, we tried to open something like what we have now in the Philadelphia market, in the Chester County market. That's where we lived.
Right.
And for whatever reason, Lou, there was just a storm cloud that sort of followed us around. And I think the silver lining...
I mean, I got to say, that might sound dramatic, but you've told me the whole story before we get into this, and we don't have time to get into it now, but my God, it really did seem that way.
Yeah, it was one.
Just one thing after another.
Yeah, it was one catastrophic blow after another.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe all of what happened, was for a reason. I am a big believer in, in that. In fact, I was going to call this place Karma instead of Sugar Run. So the place is called Karma, and there's no menus. You just sit down and you get what you deserve.
Right.
So I think everything happened for a reason, and I was happy to be here now on a whim, feeling very forlorn at the time. I put my wife's home zip code in, 16635, which is the Duncansville, Altoona area, on a commercial real estate finder, and this building popped up. It's a 6-bay garage. It was built in 1998. It was used as a Napa garage that did wheel alignments and oil changes. In fact, if you look behind you, you could see the pins on the ground where the lifts for the trucks would have been. And I even have a couple old signs up in the office that say, tire alignment, things like that. So we took the space over. It had been abandoned as a automotive place after just a couple of years, and then it was being used as document storage for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, floor to ceiling. There was nothing but pallet racking in the space. Very different than how it looks today. So my landlord saw that what I was going to bring was a much bigger enhancement than this cool space being used for document storage. You could put document storage anywhere.
Right.
So they did. They moved them out, and we took the space over, and we actually opened on the Ides of March, March 15th in 2023, which ironically, March 15th is Ron Barchet's birthday.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
The guy from Victory. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy from Victory. So everybody knows the horrific story of the Ides of March where
Yes.
Caesar was murdered by the senators. That just happens to be.
You've been dodging that so far.
Yeah, we've not been murdered by senators. So we took over the space, and we have a nice little 3.5 barrel brewery. It's Blickman Engineering, is out of Indiana.
And he said it's electric heat?
It is electric.
Uh-huh.
The early setup cost for that is much less than a gas.
Yeah.
The long-term operations isn't as great, but we're undersized for satisfying this, we're about 90 seats in the space that we have right now. It's a 3,100 square foot building. That's 30-something feet wide by 100 feet long. So it's definitely a big rectangle. Got a powerful little kitchen and a powerful little brewery that's making extremely traditional beers. And I think a lot of the beer styles that I make came from my exposure of the German European beer scene.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of that from Victory.
I mean, we really do need to talk about your beer selection, and we already did. We were tasting beers before I got on here. Anyway, you have how many beers on?
16.
And one IPA.
That's right.
I don't know the last time I've been in a place where I saw that. And yet you have, 5 German styles? 6?
I have, right now, there's 6 German beers.
Yeah. So I always feel stupid asking this. You know what? Actually, let's stick a pin in that because I want to go back and 2 things. Very, more upfront, more immediately visible. 1, the place is called Sugar Run. And 2, there are freaking birds everywhere. What's the story?
There are. I think that I think when I was a little kid, one of 7 children, and the second youngest, I was far from spoiled. In fact, I like my toy box as growing up was very sparse. And it wasn't because my parents didn't love me.
Sure.
It's just that they were just like
7
over
kids.
it. Yeah, they were just over it. So one of the things that they definitely impressed upon me that is the love of birds. My parents are both big bird watchers and actually had a vacation house in Cape May Point, New Jersey, and it overlooked a bird sanctuary. And the Cape of New Jersey is spanned by the bay to Lewes, Delaware. So it's a huge migratory path for birds to rest before they go over another body of water. So in our backyard, we would just watch hawk migrations every October without fail. And I guess I was probably 3 years old or 4 years old. My parents let me look at the John Audubon book, Encyclopedia of Birds. And
it's enormous.
It's enormous. The book is half the size of this table. And just the illustrations of it, birds from all over the world, Australia, Africa, everywhere. And I was just used to seeing these like backyard, robins and blue jays, getting exposure to raptors like, hawks and falcons was really interesting and exciting. But I think that there is a whimsicality with birds. And when I bring up why birds is because they're so beautiful and they're fascinating to me for a bunch of different reasons. Just the way that they live. They're so different and unique. We have started watching birds pretty aggressively over the past 20 or so years. In fact, I have a pair of binoculars that's made from the crystal company Swarovski. And these binoculars were a gift from a very dear friend of mine. But this pair of binoculars is $1,500.
Oh my God.
And I'll tell you, when you look through them, it's almost more clear than your normal eyes. We've got a little bit of a marsh area in the backyard here. So we get some marsh birds, like the red-winged blackbird shows up. I don't know what it is about birds. I think there was a quote from Mark Twain that I'd like to share. He said that there's no greater representation of the animation of nature other than birds. And I think that's very true. We have a cardinal, a woodpecker, we've got hawk, owl, kingfisher murals painted on the building, and all of our packaged products all have birds represented on them. And I think that birds are just sort of a slick thing. They're very clean looking. They take very good care of, their feathers, because if not, they won't be able to fly.
Right.
So they're very sort of badass in their approach. And they're, very vicious hunters. Very few of them just eat seeds. They're all, either omnivorous or carnivorous.
Well, you mentioned something about the kingfisher. Like you have it up on the wall in your brewery. Tell us about that.
Yeah,
that
so
fact.
The kingfisher is a water bird, almost exclusively eats fish, but it is one of the highest success rates in hunting out of any animal in the animal kingdom. Its success rate is like 98%, which means almost every time it tries to catch a fish, it does so. And I put it there, Lou, because I wanted it to be prophetic. I wanted to run a 98% kind of a success business.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good reminder to make sure that you're, doing the best that you can so that your customers get an opportunity to be a disciple of your brand, come back and keep paying the mortgage.
Yeah, that's what it is, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a cool look. I think it looks very earthy. The whole building is green on the outside. The west and east walls of the building are green. Even in the bathrooms, we carried that through. The north and south walls are white. The ceiling is black. And it just has a very cozy, very chill vibe to the space.
Well, and we can hear the waterfall in the background. You've got that, I don't know, what do you call it, a greenhouse?
It's a greenhouse.
A greenhouse.
Yeah, we put a 16 by 28 foot greenhouse off the back of our last garage door, which even on a gray, rainy day like today, it lets in tremendous amounts of light.
Yeah.
And it's a very cool space, very much one with nature. I mean, as much of a sort of wiry hammer that I am most of the time, I absolutely am a lover of nature, and I think it's a cool space to be in. We've got a really neat backyard that's all tucked into a wood line.
Yeah.
And we've got 2 bird feeders that you can't see right now because the tarp of the greenhouse is down, but we'll go through on some weeks 40 pounds of bird seed a week. And we've seen everything from the indigo bunting to Baltimore Orioles to all the standard fare of the yellow finch. We see chickadees, nuthatches, thrush, anything from robins to blue jays to ruby-throated sparrows to the grosbeak. I mean, the list goes on and on. And to sit and drink a beer, in fact, I even have on some of the cans that I have the can of our pale ale, which is my favorite. It says on the back of the can, great for bird watching. So I'm trying to sort of spread this out to everybody
Sure.
and let them know that, drinking beer doesn't have to be just about beer pong. It can be about, enjoying life and enjoying nature.
Yeah.
While having a couple cold beers.
Why not? Why
Yeah.
not? Tell me the outdoorsy thing. Tell me about that RV out there, which just looks really cool, by the way.
It is really cool. So we bought, this was like COVID dollars spent. So like we couldn't go anywhere, so we decided to buy an RV after we went on an RV trip. We rented an RV and I took my kids to the Great Smoky Mountains.
Nice.
And then we got back on a Saturday, turned the RV in, and on Tuesday I bought a 19, it was literally 2.5 days later. I can be very impetuous.
Yes.
And unfortunately, sometimes that gets me into trouble, but sometimes it works. You got to strike while the iron's hot.
Yep.
But I liked it and I wanted one, but I wanted something with character. I think that there's a style to everything that we do that's unique. It's definitely not a cookie cutter space. Our beers, although very traditional, our approach to beers in today's market is certainly not cookie cutter. And neither is Pickles. It's the name of the RV.
Okay.
You'll notice the license plate's monogrammed. It actually says Pickles, but there's an actual Pickles license plate in the state of Pennsylvania, so I had to make the E a 3 on the license plate so I could still get it. But
Okay.
Pickles is a 1975 Beechcraft. Now, Beechcraft is an organization that manufactured 2,000 of these Class A motorhomes from 1973.
Are they an airplane company?
It's very much so.
Yeah.
But this is a different Beechcraft.
Oh, okay.
Beechcraft is an airplane company, but this is not them.
Different company. Okay.
Yeah, so from 1973 to 1980, they made about 2,000, well, not about, they made 2,000 of these Class A motorhomes. I fell in love with the look of it. I mean, it looks like the Scooby-Doo Mystery Mobile on
I gotta
steroids.
say, somewhere in here I saw like a Matchbox.
Yeah, we have
car version of it?
we have a couple.
It looks like it ought to be a Matchbox car.
Yeah,
It's that classic.
We actually have a Matchbox Class A motorhome.
Yeah.
And Tonka put out a Winnebago Class A motorhome, and we have a replica of that above our bathroom suite as well. But yeah, Pickles is a 1975 Beechcraft. On our 1-year anniversary, which was April 15th, 2004, we had a bunch of T-shirts made up with a cartoon that I drew.
2024.
Yeah, 24.
Yeah.
With a cartoon that I drew of Pickles on the back of it, and it said, the Sugar Run Brewing Company 1 year. So anyway, Pickles has been to Cape Point, New Jersey, Leesburg, Virginia, Raystown Lake. We take it up there all the time. It's been to Shawnee. It's been to Gettysburg. Everything in the vehicle works great. It's got a big block Chevy 454 Corvette Stingray engine in it.
My God.
It sounds like Hounds of Hell when that thing is fired up. And the engine is in between shotgun and the pilot.
Oh, okay.
And it is so loud. If you're over 50 miles an hour, you're screaming any kind of conversation you want to have. It really does best when it's parked.
Okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
good.
But it's a neat
Looks
thing.
great.
And it matches our sort of whimsicality of
Yeah.
this space.
Yeah. So across the parking lot is the Slinky Action Center. You have a tap room there.
Yes. So we were approached by our landlord, who also is
Owns that too?
owns
Okay.
that as well. He actually owns the business.
Oh.
Slinky Actions owns a arcade and play center for kids, and I guess there was enough parents who were bored out of their minds
Sure.
watching their kid in a ball pit. They put a bar in over there and asked if we would take over that location. There was another brewery in there. I'm not sure if it was such a good fit. Honestly, I'm not really 100% sure why they approached us, but they did. And we had originally said that we weren't interested in the space, but they came back and hemmed and hawed at us a little bit and convinced us to go over. It is attached to a 4-lane duckpin bowling alley.
I saw that. I am fascinated by that.
Have you ever played duckpin
I've never
bowling?
played it. I've seen it on TV.
Well,
I've never played it.
we took over that space last January, so we're, a year and 5 months into that lease. And as part of our lease agreement, I have unlimited duckpin bowling credits. And I will tell
Smart
you.
negotiation.
Well, thank you. I need something to do. As if I don't have enough. But I have become quite mediocre
There you go.
at duck pin bowling. The pins are tethered with paracord. They're much smaller than
Really?
a bowling pin.
Wow.
Yeah, so they bounce around, and
Okay.
you could hit one pin, and it'll fly up and lasso the other one. So it's like a game of bowling, but it has a tremendous amount of suspense to it.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to fall and what's going to hit.
Sure.
It is difficult. My high score over there is a 166. I do enjoy bowling, but yeah, it's fun.
Okay.
It's neat. I'm not sure how much of a net positive it is. Maybe a little bit of a defensive move to be over there.
Okay.
It's certainly logistically very easy for me to take
I
a
was thinking that.
dolly
Yeah, it's right there.
and just wheel kegs over.
Yeah.
You know, in the winter when it's really cold and nobody's wants to be outside, the bar is very busy.
Oh, okay.
In the summer when everybody's on vacation and
Yeah.
traveling about, it's kind of sleepy.
Who wants to be inside?
Right.
Yeah.
Where our business, because of all of the garage doors,
Yeah.
in the summer, we open everything up and it's really a wonderful
outside.
space.
Yeah.
We are outside.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of a trade-off. When we're slow in January and February, they're very busy.
Okay.
So I do think it is a net
Yeah.
positive, but it's not like we're blowing the doors off the Cadillac or anything.
Gotcha. Something we haven't talked about is the food. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure. You know, God bless my mom. She's still with us at, 90 years old. She was not a great culinarian when I was coming up. You know, at the time, as a young person, I was sort of particular about what I was eating, just because I didn't like a lot of food. Now I have very few bugaboos. I only like mashed potatoes. And my mom's like, well, we're having, pork chops and baked potatoes because it's easier. And I was like, well, I really don't like them. Let's have mashed potatoes. And she's like, well, that's a pain. I don't want to make mashed potatoes. I said, well, let me make them. So she's like, peel the potato, boil the potato, mashed potato. I'm like, well, this is easy.
Okay.
So then I started just cooking all of her, the 10 meals that she sent out in rotation
Right,
for
right.
my whole life. As I mentioned at the beginning of this, I got a job working at Cavanaugh's when I was 13 years old. My parents didn't take us out to dinner ever. And I saw a plate of potato skins go out. I had no idea what a potato skin was. And I was just really, really intrigued by that. And I started falling in love with culinary arts and just cooking food. And then after I graduated college and started working at Dock Street, there was a chef named Olivier de Saint-Martin who was part owner-operator, and he taught me a lot about French cuisine. And I was learning a lot about beer from, Eric Savage and Chris Lapierre. I really started getting steeped into the world of craft food and craft beer, and it was a bug that bit me, and I've been just very passionate about all different types of beverages and all different types of food. And I've had a really awesome opportunity, especially with Victory, to be in charge of every kitchen that they had. And we did, beer dinners all the time. We did menu additions, all the time. I remember working on a Bavarian soft pretzel where we actually dunked it in sodium hydroxide.
Put it in the lye, yeah.
Yeah, well, the lye is a little different than sodium
Okay.
hydroxide.
Okay.
Sodium hydroxide is food-grade caustic.
Yeah.
It's the same stuff essentially that we use to it's a base detergent that we use to get rid of organic material. And what it does is it melts the outside of the dough for a split second, and then it's neutralized once you start baking it. I remember Ron told me that if we use caustic soda, that we could make this burn, Ron Barchet from Victory, we could make this burn on the pretzel. And I remember giving him the first soft pretzel that Victory made, and the ratio of sodium hydroxide was too high. And Ron's like, wow, you got the crust right. You bite into it, it has a certain snap to it now. And he's chewing it up. He must have called me 30 seconds later, and he goes, is your mouth burning? And I was like, yeah, it is. And he goes, your ratio's wrong. He's like, you need to neutralize it with an acid. He's like, drink a soda or drink a beer. And I'm like, all right, I'll drink a beer. And so we had to dial it in so that it wasn't like hurting people.
Yeah.
But I remember Ron calling me and being like, "It's too much." And there was a journey in culinary arts.
Yeah.
And then I started making pretzels commercially for Victory's menus. And I'll tell you, I must have made how many tens of thousands of soft pretzels. But, food and beer together, I think, is a 1-2 punch. I love everything about it. I love Asian cooking. I love German food. You should try my Russian borscht. We did a beer dinner earlier this year that was all about the British Isles. So, I slow roasted lamb shoulder and made a wonderful cottage pie, or shepherd's pie. Cottage pies with ground beef.
With beef, yeah.
We did a Cinco de Mayo beer dinner just recently where it was all Spanish and Latin themed. We have another one coming up in about a month that's all about barbecue. While I was at Victory, I actually became a certified Kansas City barbecue judge. And Victory gave me a lot of latitude to sort of do almost whatever I wanted because the numbers were strong, the customers were happy, and we were building an empire together. And, food was sort of, at the center of the hearth of all that activity.
I think that's getting close. The area. People might not come here just for you, but what else is in the area that's worth coming to?
Well, this area is steeped in railroad history. Now, unfortunately, Altoona didn't really put their ear to the ground to hear the buffalo running, and they did not make the conversion from steam technology to diesel technology. And if they did, Altoona would have been much more bustling than it is today. And thankfully, the I-99 corridor is a great connector to getting to Pittsburgh from Harrisburg State College. But the historic Altoona curve is 7 miles from here. The Altoona curve bridges a gap over a gorge, and it is world famous and actually targeted by Hitler during World War II.
Yeah.
So railroading is really big. There's a railroad museum, which is first class, about 2 miles from us right now. Altoona is home to the Altoona Curve minor league baseball team. Again, Altoona is just north of Hollidaysburg, which is the county seat of Blair County. There's also something called the Canal Basin, which also ties very much into the railroad history, and that's in downtown Hollidaysburg. They used a canal system of locks to get over the mountain, proved to be very inefficient and very costly, but it was part of the history.
I think it only ran for like 20 years.
I think it was less than that.
Yeah, before they just shot railroads. Well, they got the curve built.
Right, they got the curve built.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was less than that. Altoona has geographically a nice sort of halfway point from Harrisburg to Pittsburgh, sort of 2 hours in either direction. Penn State, of course, is very, very popular with college athletics, and during the home football games, Altoona, all the hotels are packed from overflow.
Overflow, sure.
So there's also a ton of nature. I mean, this is really the sort of the gateway, the first frontier to the Alleghenies. This area has so many rails to trail conversions. There's so many state parks that are within a half-hour drive from where our location is, whether it's Prince Gallitzin or even Canoe Creek, which was beautiful. I mean, there's all these furnaces all over the place to explore. Yeah. Chimney Rocks is visible from almost the drive out of here. It's a smaller town. There's not a huge population here. Being in Chester County too, you could really see how built up it was getting, how quickly. And getting on in our life, we wanted something a little bit slower. And even if we were in Chester County, Lou, we would have been maybe a very small fish in a very big pond.
Also true.
And here we're a little bit of a bigger fish in a much smaller pond. And I think that bringing that sort of Philadelphia edge to our food offerings and even the way we craft our cocktails or even the beers has a little bit more of a sophistication than I think that people are used to in this area. So for people who are business professionals who have the opportunity to travel to Pittsburgh or Philly and appreciate finer cuisine, if you will, I think we give them that. I mean, we've got some things on the menu, like we're not just doing we have a tuna taco that's triple grade sashimi tuna, and we do a banh mi slaw, and we make our own soy aioli out of it, and it's just not the kind of vernacular that you're used to hearing in a place like Altoona.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we put, because of my history with Texas hot dogs, and Altoona is famous for hot dogs, and you be the judge, we'll have a hot dog in a moment or two. You'll find that my Texas hot dog has a little bit more of a gourmet quality to it. It just does.
Okay.
You know, so hopefully I'm not overselling anything, but I really do I'm very passionate about the nuances of cooking and the nuances of making very clean beer, very approachable beer, and a very clean and open space. When you visited before, I'm not sure if you remember or not, but we play our music pretty loud too. It's a very sort of vibrant, energized space.
Yeah, it was a lively space.
Yeah, and even if there's nobody in here, I want the music to be loud. So, yeah, we're having a great time, and I have a wonderful staff. You know, my wife and I, not to say that we don't work hard, we definitely work hard, but we looked at this sort of as, you know, how do we do something that we love to do that doesn't feel like work, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm 52 years old, I kind of feel like I'm semi-retired because I don't mind any of what I have to do.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of young people who are doing the heavy lift. You know, they're the ones closing the place down. I've trained other people to help me cook beer. So, you know, I'm not kicking out mash and doing a lot of, you know, some of the grunt work. And I can act more as a puppeteer instead of just sort of a puppet for somebody else. But we're absolutely having a blast, and to be able to have a venue to reconnect with old friends like you has been really a blessing, and we're thrilled to be here, and we're anxious to see where the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years takes us.
It's going to be interesting. Hey, thank you so much. Great to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you too, Lou.
All right, good luck. Take care.
Yeah, anything I can do for you, let me know.
Thanks.
True to his word, Matt rustled up a pair of Texas Hots for each of us, and he had not oversold them at all. They were great, and I'll tell you why. The roll was lightly steamed, so it was soft all around, no leathery bits. The mustard was a flavorful blend of Dijon and whole grain, some real zest to it. The onions were fresh cut, zippy. The sauce was classic, spicy, meaty, loose, but not soupy. And the dog was one with some character, a solid bite and a real meaty flavor to it. Top-notch Texas Hots, Matt. We thanked Matt for the dogs and his time and headed out. Our first stop was Marzoni's, the original Marzoni's, the brew pub opened by the folks at Haas's Steak and Sea back in 2003. Haas's corporate headquarters is right across the parking lot. I visited Marzoni's back in 2004 when I was researching the third edition of my Pennsylvania Breweries book. What I found then was pretty much what I found now. An upscale casual restaurant with a big central bar, serving house-made beers and some great Italian-style brick oven comfort food. Okay, I assume it's all good. I've never been able to talk myself out of ordering what I had that first time, 22 years ago, the meatball parm sandwich. It's so good. The concept had some legs. There are Marzoni's in Selinsgrove, Altoona, Mechanicsburg, and State College. On the way to our next stop, we drove past the Hollidaysburg business that dates from the canal days and still makes the town an economic success, the McClanahan Corporation. Started as a foundry in 1835 to supply the Portage Railroad, McClanahan is a sixth-generation family-owned and run company and a worldwide heavy equipment manufacturer with offices in India, Northern Ireland, and Chile. I should mention the other Hollidaysburg international success, the Slinky, the spring-based toy with the unforgettable jingle. James Industries first sold Slinkies in 1945, and they moved the company to Hollidaysburg in 1964, and every Slinky made since then has been made right here. It's the official state toy of Pennsylvania, and of course, the inspiration for the Slinky Action Center, where you can go drink Matt Krueger's beer and go duckpin bowling. Dave and I would wind up down where the canal basin used to be on Juniata Street. There's a rail yard there now, a symbolic victory of one mode of transportation over the other, but there's also the Canal Basin Park with some open-air exhibits that show what things were like on the canal and the Portage Railroad and double as a fun playground for the kids. You can also take a look at the schedule for the Everett Railroad excursion line. I know there are some events coming up for Father's Day. But we were there for a jolt. We stopped at Burrow Coffee, right on Juniata Street. The shop is upstairs in 2 renovated canal workers' homes from the time of the canal. It's a pretty cool old feel. Our barista, Maddie, was very chatty and pleasant and gave us our options. I went with what's become my usual, a cortado, and may I just say again how great it is to be able to get a cortado damn near anywhere in central Pennsylvania these days. We chatted with Maddie, and she gave us a complimentary hoagie bagel, baked with cheese and banana peppers. Yum. Burrow Coffee gets their coffee from Rothrock Coffee here in State College, and they get their goodies from the kitchen of the U.S. Hotel, right next door. They're owned by the same people. We walked over there next, because I remembered the U.S. Hotel from that same trip to Marzoni's in 2004, and I'd been hankering to get back there ever since. The U.S. Hotel was built to service the crews and passengers of the canal in the 1830s, and had survived the collapse of the canal, Prohibition, the Depression, and everything else. She's still standing proud. The bar itself is a beauty. Big wooden columns flanking the mirrored back bar, an authentic spittoon trough at the foot, and glass grape light fixtures. There are some of the original outdoor signs on display in the back hall. But don't just go here for the history. The bar serves a nice selection of cocktails and beers. I grabbed a Trogs Lager, and the food smelled and sounded great, but by now, Dave and I were just too stuffed to eat. Our next stop was in the middle of town, what they call the Diamond, a small town square at the intersection of Allegheny and Montgomery Streets, just down from the county courthouse. We went to the Capitol Hotel to visit 2 more places, Mayfield, a local-focused restaurant, and the Pipe Room, a lovingly preserved dive bar down below. We were met by Mayfield's owner, Madeline Martinson, who I'd contacted to see if she could get us in the Pipe Room before it opened. She was happy to take us down there first. Well, it's called the Pipe Room because it's tucked in under the hotel, and there are pipes running along the low ceiling. There's a bar room with an entrance off Montgomery on the low side of the hill, a simple bar with some decent taps and solid cocktails, and then another room with pool tables. Basic, comfortable, a Hollidaysburg tradition for years. Mayfield, on the other hand, is relatively new. Madeline had started in another building, but when the Capitol Hotel asked if she'd like to run their restaurant, she moved right in. There was a lot of work to be done first, like removing tons of mastic leveling compound from the floors, but the mosaic tile it revealed was worth the work. It's a beautiful place, and the bar selection is impressive. Again, I wish I could tell you about the food, but they weren't open yet. The menu looked wonderful, and we're going to go back. I'll let you know how that goes. Our last stop was Sean Nicole's, an Irish pub there on Allegheny Street. It was a bit ragged, but wholly authentic for it, and the folks were good-natured. "You should stick around," the fellow beside us at the bar said as we wrapped up our pints of Guinness. "In about 20 minutes, this bar will be all asses and elbows. It gets crazy at 4:30. Sounded like a good time to pay the tab and hit the road. After we left Sean Nicole's, we headed out of town on Route 22 and saw Chimney Rocks up on the hill south of town. It was a cool view, but the long, wide view out over town from up there is even better, a favorite spot for picnics. And that, my friends, was Hollidaysburg and Duncansville and Matt Krueger in the Sugar Run Brewery. It's a trip I'd been meaning to make, and it did not disappoint. Well, what else? I'm still working on the new book, and I may still have to take a month off to get it done, because my son's wedding is coming up at the end of August, and I am not going to short that. That said, I'm going to be a bit vague here and tell you that there are a couple few interesting and exciting podcast projects in the works for this fall, including, maybe, finally, the first Seen Through a Glass event. I mean, a full-on, happened because of the podcast, you're all invited event. More about that, probably in August. That's the show. Thanks to Matt Krueger for the interview, which he did on short notice and kind of dug me out of that hole I was in 2 weeks ago. Thanks, bud. It was great to see you again. And thanks to Nick and Zach Taylor for trusting me to do that review. Cheers. As always, you can find pictures for this episode on Instagram at Stag Podcast and on Facebook at Seen Through a Glass. If you're listening to the show on the radio at WSOV, there are over 80 more episodes to enjoy at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, any of the major podcast sources. We mentioned the Staple Hill Tunnel, the first railroad tunnel in North America and part of the Allegheny Portage Railroad. But there was another tunnel on the Pennsylvania Canal system, this one a canal tunnel that went under Pittsburgh. After those canal boats were reassembled in Johnstown, they would float down the canal to Pittsburgh, crossing the Allegheny River on a big aqueduct. The boats went to a basin at the current-day intersection of Grant Street and Liberty Avenue. Then they had to get to the Monongahela River, but Grant Hill was in the way. Money for canals was no problem then, so they bored a tunnel under the hill and floated the boats underground. In 1861, the aqueduct failed, and as the day of the canals had largely passed, the tunnel was sealed and abandoned. It's still down there, parts of it, under a lot of downtown Pittsburgh, including the U.S. Steel Building. And the next episode, it's once again unclear. I have several irons in the fire again, and we'll have to wait and see which one's ready to go first. I will say that I've got a shot at a big white whale. Cross your fingers we can land that sometime this coming month, because it would be a great episode for the week before the 4th of July. Until then, thanks for listening. This is Lou Bryson on Seen Through a Glass from the smack dab center of the Keystone State.